All of us, as individuals here in our world, have two separate forces in our life. And these two forces really appear in all dimensions of our world, in our family life, in our national life. They appear in mankind, and they appear in the universe. What we want to start off with, the idea that I saw by my father, Rabbi Horowitz, let's start from the most largest dimension of life, and then go to the particular side of life. When we look at our universe, look at our world, we see two forces. We see heavenly forces that are related to the spiritual side, and forces that are related to the physical side. In fact, isn't the opening pasuk in the Torah, what does it say? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. God created the heavens, the spiritual side, and God created our earth, Aretz, the physical side. So too in mankind, with no difference in denomination, race, or whatever, amongst human beings, we can find the koach of Yefet, the external, the beauty, the superficial side of life, and we can find the force of Shem, which is the essence, the spiritual essence. Remember, Shem, which also means a name, every name has its own inner meaning, its own inner essence. The word David, the name David, or the name Avi, or Yochai, Michael, all these names have an inner essence. When parents decide to give a name to a child, they are basically stamping an essence together with God. So two forces in life, Yefet and Shem, are in mankind. The more external, related to the outer beauty, and the force of Shem, which we said is the inner essence that really focuses deeper inside into the home, education, spiritual values. From the world to mankind, but now to a nation. We can see in the building of the nation of Israel, especially, the difference in our national building, the difference between the material building, the physical building of our nation, and the spiritual, the cultural, the values of our nation. Two forces working at the same time. So too in a family. Didn't the Torah teach us that when a family has a first son, that we call in the Torah Bechor, the firstborn, that we have to distinguish between the son who's the firstborn, that he has the influence, the spiritual essence, the role of the spiritual of the family, as the Torah says, Kadesh li kol Bechor, sanctify me every Bechor, as opposed to the other children. The other children which are more related to the material, physical side. Of course they'd be spiritual. So too, in each and every individual. Each and every individual is comprised of two powers, two forces. The physical side, the guf, the body, and the neshama, the soul, the spiritual side. All of these two forces that we mention in all different dimensions of our world, are they from God or not? Do they belong to God or not? Are they from Hashem or not? Yes. Absolutely. They all belong to Hashem, who is one. God who is one. And if He is one, and He created these two powers, these different sides, dimensions, His plan, His universal plan in the world is that these two powers become united, that they work together. They become one idea. Who was the first giant to declare, recognize that the world is really united under one God? Avraham Avinu. Anak Shebanakim, the language, I forgot if the Midrash or the Yerushalmi, he's the giant of faith. Or as we call him, the Lone Ranger, the language of the Midrash, has nothing to do with American culture. Kol Ha'olam, remember his nickname is Avram Ha'iv, Avram the Hebrew, which one of the meanings we said once, Kol Ha'olam b'tzad echad shel hanahar, va'Avraham al tzad sheni. The entire world culturally is on one side of the river. Avraham, the believer of monotheism, is on the other side. One against everyone. He saw that the world, our physical, material world, has spiritual content. And he was the one that understood that that these two different powers can be united. Okay? And we saw when he gives a speech to his servant in last week's Parsha, and he sends his servant hundreds of kilometers away, he says, Hashem, Elokei Hashamayim, Velokei Haaretz. He's the God of heaven, and he's also the God of the earth. Why? When he left Aram Naharayim alone, he only saw the divine side of life. When he came to the land of Israel, he sees how the divine entity appears in our physical, material world. And therefore he calls God Elokei Hashamayim Velokei Haaretz, the God of heaven and the God of the earth. And that's what he's been trying to teach. Monotheism, the unity of these two powers. But when he was taken away, when he had to leave Aram Narayim, he only saw God theoretically in the world as the God of heaven and not the God of the earth, because all the people on earth were not recognizing. Now people are beginning to recognize. The unity of these two forces for the Jewish people comes into form in the special commandment of Brit Milah. Brit Milah, Avram is the first to be commanded to perform. Okay? And he does it. And God precedes with a very special term. God says to Avram Avinu, we learned it in chapter 17 or so, or 18, I don't remember, 17, Hitalech lefanai, go before me, veheyeh tamim. What does the word tamim mean in that commandment regarding the Brit Milah? Do you remember what the word tamim means? Complete, excellent, wholesome, complete. Okay? Italech lefanai ve'yeh tamim. So therefore, this completeness of Avram Avinu is he has the ability to unite two dimensions, two powers inside his life. In other words, the stamp of the circumcision on the flesh is the ability of what will be for the Jewish people to unite the guf and the neshama together. The unity of the body and the soul. The unity of the physical, the material, and the spiritual can be brought to a height, to a completeness through the circumcision. One of our guests for Shabbat, he's a lawyer from New York. He comes every year for the last 20 years. He flies in for the Shabbat to Chayesar, to my in-laws. Told me a very terrible statistic, that from the age of 10 to 25 in the world, 30%, I don't know if it's only in North America or the entire world, people are sick with mental diseases, emotional disorders, from the age of 10 already to 25. Like Rabbi talks about sadness in the world, people taking drugs or this or that. All the complexities, or perplexity is the better word, in our lives, all the agony, the sadness that we see in individual lives, in family lives, in national lives, in mankind, from historically, the root of it is the separation between body and soul, and not the unity between body and soul. When people don't see how they come together, how they can become one, that they complement one another, that their body is not disconnected from the soul. When they are separated, that's the source of all the pain, the affliction, the crying in our world. And we know that they cannot be separated.
Also,
One second, sir. God's supervision, dominion on the world through Avram Avinu, he wanted Avram Avinu to have two sons. Two sons. Okay? In Yishmael, and what was emphasized, which power element of life in Yishmael?
curse and blessing.
The material, the physical side, the bodily side was the one that he was a great hunter, right? The Torah distinguished him. Okay? However, In Yitzchak, what is emphasized? Which power, which dimension, obviously? The spiritual side, the nishmati, the soul side of life. Wouldn't it be great that these two sons would get their act united together and they could live together? Everyone with his special force. Did Avram merit that? Yes or no? No. This is what's emphasized at the beginning and at the end of the last parsha. The dominating force on Yitzchak is Avraham, his character traits, his ideas of faith. Avraham olidet Yitzchak. In contrast, we learned at the end of the last parsha, it's not Avram giving birth to Ishmael, but it is Hagar. And Avram Avinu did not merit to unite the two. And as a result, he had no choice but to drive out Ishmael, the son of the maidservant, and separate his son from Ishmael. In the house of Avraham remained only who? Yitzchak. The koach, the force of Yitzchak, the spiritual son of Yitzchak. Is that the completeness that we're looking for? Yes or no? No, it's not. Avram even said, before he had Yitzchak, Lu Yishmael, halavai, that it would be Yichyeh lefanach, that it'll be able to live before you, meaning to live together with you. And then we come to the continuation of this matter. And now we have a Yitzchak and a Rivka. And the question here remains, will they be able to produce offspring that will be able to unite the two? That we'll see in our next shiur, which we're continuing right now. Come on, no, don't. We have another 5 minutes. I don't want them to fire me.
Wait, should I leave it?
No,